Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Slow Art Friday. My name is Christy McMillan, and I am the Director of Learning and Engagement here at the Asheville Art Museum. And I'm joined by one of our great touring docents, Megan Pyle, who will be leading today's conversation. Each Friday at 12 p.m., docents lead virtual interactive conversations about a few works in our collection or special exhibitions. The goal is simple: slow down, discover the joy of looking at art, and talk about the experience with others. For today's program, Megan will lead us in an interactive conversation about 3 artworks, 2 of which are in our collection, and 1 that is in our current special exhibition, Across the Atlantic, American Impressionism Through the French Lens. We'll spend about 15 minutes or so with each one. Megan will allow us time to look at each work on our own, slowly, before leading a conversation with questions. As participants, we encourage you to engage in conversation and dialogue with Megan, myself, and each other throughout the program. Few housekeeping items before we get started. You notice that your microphone and video were muted by default. We invite you to turn on your video so that we can have a conversation with talking heads instead of black boxes. And in just a moment, I will make it so that you can turn on your microphone as well. Choose a quiet room and close the door. Please silence any alerts from nearby devices, as they can be distracting during the conversation. If you do choose to turn on your video, try not to sit in front of a window, lamp, or other strong source of light or movement, as it makes it difficult to see you. Use headphones and microphone for best sound quality. While you can log in using a smartphone, we do recommend using a desktop, laptop, tablet, or other large screen in order to see slides and meeting tools. Make sure that your screen name includes your first name and last initial, or first name and last name, so that we know who we're talking to. To ask questions or make comments throughout the program, the simplest and most expedient way would be to unmute your microphone when Megan or I ask for questions or comments, and to just go right ahead and participate in the conversation. There are 2 other ways to participate that might take a little bit longer to get to you, but of course, if this is the way that you feel more comfortable, we invite you to participate by either typing your comments or questions in the chat box, or raising your hand in the participant sidebar, and I will call on you and unmute your microphone. Any of those 3 ways is perfectly fine, but again, unmuting most expedient. We are recording, so if you prefer not to be recorded, make sure that your video and audio remain muted, and use the chat box to submit any questions or comments. At this time, I'll make it so that folks can unmute themselves at will. We just ask that you leave your microphone muted unless you're actively asking a question or making a comment. Before we get started, does anybody have any questions? All right, Megan, what will we be talking about today?
Oh, wow. Thank you, Christy. And good afternoon, everybody. My name's Megan Pyle. I'm a touring docent and happy to be part of the Asheville Art Museum community. And I'm so happy to be with y'all this afternoon to share a conversation about these artworks. In honor of our magnificent Western North Carolina landscape, I've chosen 3 artworks that honor discovering rural landscapes. I think that each artwork has a unique representation of the virtues of the countryside, and working the land, and the beauty of nature. So I'm so excited to be discussing these with y'all. We'll discuss each artwork for about 15 minutes. And please feel free to chime in the chat box. Or just jump in anytime you have a question or a comment. We'll discuss each artwork for about 15 minutes, and sometimes we have to cut the conversation short to allow for time to discuss all 3 artworks. Okay, well, I'm excited to get started. May we please see the first artwork? Oh, thank you, Christy. So if everyone could just please take a few seconds to look at the artwork top to bottom, side to side, and corner to corner. So where is your eye drawn first in this artwork?
I'm drawn to the mother that's nursing and breastfeeding the baby, and then to the other girl with the purse and the rake. So it looks to me as if they've been working in the fields and they're taking time out now for the mother to feed the baby.
Okay, good. And what do you see that that makes you say that? That they're taking a break, as opposed to maybe they've just first arrived, or what do you see that makes you say that? You see something to indicate time of day, or just do you see something within the figures that makes you think they're taking a break?
I think the positioning of the figures, they look a little tired, a little worn out. Just the way she's leaning, the one girl with the white bottom dress leaning on the rake there, holding her purse down, or her arm against her head. And it's just my impression.
Okay, good.
Today I'm looking at it differently than when I reviewed it first. Today, the central character for me is the lady standing up because she's so well lit. And I have to make my gaze move to the baby. When yesterday I was so on the baby, but today it reminds me of the man with the hoe.
Okay, good.
I agree. My eye was definitely drawn to the young girl, and that not to be differ, but I think that instead of a purse is actually probably water, because they certainly had to carry water into the fields with them, and it was very hot, and dusty, and hard work. It's a rake she's holding. She looks tired. The young man, the young boy, is interesting to me. I'm wondering if his job was to take care of the baby while the mother's working in the field, and he's observed. I don't know. Of course, it's strictly a guess.
I was wondering.
But
Sorry.
yeah, go ahead.
No, finish. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt.
Well, I was just saying, you know, that's the old way of doing the haystacks. And I actually had a job when I was growing up I was probably about 6, 7, 8. My job was to stand on top of the haystacks and tamp them down as they were throwing the hay up. So everyone worked. And I thought it was great fun because I didn't have to do that. You know, all the grandchildren were expected to help if we could. And then later it was the girls' job to bring the water to the field. But so I'm pretty certain that that's water, but that brought back a lot of memories for me.
Okay, good. And what do you see that makes you say that it's hot and dusty?
That's just, I know it is.
You just know. Okay, good. Well, that's a good answer.
Megan?
Yes.
I also was drawn to the figure number one in the center, number one because she was in the center, but also because of the light and the massive white skirt, you know, really brings her forward. Now, I also wondered, you know, it looks like more, as you said, like a canteen or even, you know, some kind of a pitcher. But I'm wondering, I don't think the gentleman or the man is that young. I think there's a mustache. He has a mustache. He might even be the husband.
Okay.
I was thinking that too, that he might actually be the father of the baby. But the climate is a little confusing to me because the way they're dressed, she has a sweater, the girl with the white, and they appear to have long sleeves or jackets. So if it's hot, they should have less clothing unless they're protecting themselves from the sun with the longer sleeved clothing.
I think longer sleeves
You
were
would,
common at the time.
yeah,
Almost
would-
anything.
you would not go into the hay fields with a lot of bare skin.
Sharon?
It would be,
Yeah, I was drawn to the lady in the middle as well. Primarily, I think because of the white color of her apron, but
like,
I love the coloration of the entire piece. So when I look at it and I see the purple mountains way up there, the top left, and then I see that the bit of purple reflected in the scarf of the mother feeding the baby. I just really am enjoying how they are muted colors, but on the other hand, just very subtle, and it's a picture that gives you a very good feeling of tranquility or something, just a nice rural scene.
Okay, good.
I agree with Sharon. It's an enjoyable work to look at. Even though the primary figure looks tired, they're at peace.
Right.
She actually looks like she's enjoying watching the young mother feeding the baby. It's as if there might be a relationship between the two of them. Maybe they're sisters.
Okay, good.
Mm-hmm.
So, so what do you think we've discussed a little bit. Some of you have commented on what happened in the moments before this scene was painted and what's going on at the time. But what do you think will happen after this scene?
They'll go back to work.
Okay, good. So, so
know though, if they would go back to work, Ellen, because I mean, I know that I can see things on my screen a little bit better maybe than what you all are seeing, but I was noticing sort of the sky here, and it has a lot of pink in it. And I'm sorry, this is just darkened a little bit because of the shadow from the frame. But there's a lot of pink in the sky, and I wonder if it's the end of the day, you know, sort of approaching twilight or dusk. And so this is sort of the end of the day, and when mom is able to sit down and feed the baby. But I'm not sure about that because their clothes are so clean. You know, we keep remarking on the white apron that the woman who's standing up is wearing as being, you know, really white and clean. So I'm not sure, or if that's just an artifice for the painting.
Yes, and that's a question I'll just toss out, that she looks, the figure, the central figure, it has just such the white and clean apron that may not be, that may be contradictory to someone who's been working in a field. And but do you think there's some symbolism with the bright white color on the sort of central figure? But also, please, any other comments that you want to make, go ahead. I'm just tossing that out there.
Go ahead, Sharon.
I thought that definitely, I think the artist meant to have that figure stand out with the lighter color, because it's, but I'm wondering too, I'm not sure that they made the haystacks, and I'm trying to think who painted the picture called The Gleaners, where especially women would go out after men had done the harder work of mowing and getting the haystacks there. And they would go out and they would rake up anything that was left, because quite a bit might be left still laying on the ground of the hay or alfalfa or whatever they were mowing at the time. So I don't know, does anybody remember the painter for The Gleaners?
I think there are several paintings called Gleaners. Do you want me to try and pull some up?
Oh,
or?
no. I just thought maybe somebody had that on top of their tongue, but I was wondering if that might be what they were doing. If that
I
was
think usually it's like the Gleaners, they're usually holding scythes, and she is holding something that looks more like a rake. So maybe this is sort of the crew that comes in after the the big work has been done in cutting down the
Right.
harvest, and they're sort of getting maybe the smaller parts that have been
Yeah.
missed, or cleaning the field to prepare it for winter. Maybe, I'm not sure. I don't know as much about farming as I'm sure some of you do. So
Maybe she's not a worker. Maybe she's like what I would call the Sherpa. Maybe she's meant to carry the rake, carry the water. Maybe she even takes care of the baby. So maybe that's why her dress outfit is not, like clean like that.
I was thinking similar to what you were just saying, Laurel, that she may have come out later because she is so much cleaner and she's standing there. She may have come out to bring them water and is just, is observing them, or, there is a connection between them. But I was wondering the same thing, that she may be later, or a visit, shall we say, a visitor or a newcomer to the group, meaning the couple on the bottom.
Okay, good. So what do we see to suggest that these figures might all be related? They might all be family members.
There's an intimacy about it. That's at least what I'm seeing.
I don't think that a man in the 19th century who wasn't related to the woman who's sitting on the ground would be that up close and personal with a woman, A, and B, one who was actively nursing and exposing herself.
Okay, good.
What really interests me about this is that even though this isn't true, he does look like he's dressed in camouflage. And I just reflect on a GI coming home to see his baby for the first time.
We're great at making up stories.
Yes. Well, and it is possible that he's meeting up with these women, and he's been working in another area of the farm, or performing another more strenuous task. So it may be his first time reuniting with his family that day, or who knows? Yes, that's a good observation.
The more we look at it too, the more as Sharon mentioned, the colors. I mean, there's pinks and oranges and greens and blues and purples. And when you first look at it, it's got the muted colors, but then all of these other colors seem to start lifting off the page. So.
Yes. So would you want to be in this artwork?
I'm not a farm person.
Okay, good. Some of you have commented how peaceful and serene the setting is.
Well, I was a farm person, and that is a lot of work. Fortunately, I was in the era of the hay baler, which was good. All you had to do was stack the bales. But yeah, it's a lot of work, but it's a beautiful, beautiful piece. I'd be anxious to know who the artist was.
Yes, well, and it's getting close to needing to wrap up the discussion, but I would like to know, if you were the artist and you had to come up with a title for this artwork, what would it be?
I wish I knew the French word for farmer, or something that would be,
Fermier.
yeah, kind of interesting.
Okay, good.
I was thinking pause.
Okay.
I was thinking respite.
Yeah, I had that word come to mind too.
Yeah.
Oh, there are three of us with respite.
Okay, good. Okay, good. Well, thank you all. May we please see the label, Christy? So the title is The Baby's Hour. And so does that change the way you see the work? Because the general consensus was that the figure in the center was where most of your eyes were drawn first. And but the title, The Baby's Hour, does that change the way you see the artwork?
No.
Very few of us commented at all, if
Baby.
at all, about the baby.
Interesting. If the baby is also in white, and I didn't realize it until, you know, well, I saw that, but the connection in terms of the eye from the white baby, the baby in white to the vertical figure's apron.
Mhm.
So in a way, it is meant to, you know, to draw the eye, but I can't remember who did it. Laurel, maybe. The fact that she noticed the mother nursing first before concentrating on the standing figure.
Okay, good. Well, let me just tell you all briefly a little bit about the artist. And I may let Christy help me with the pronunciation. But Leon Agustin Lermite. Lermite. Sorry, I apologize. And he lived from 1844 to 1925. His subject matters often included peasants and depicted rural life, and he's known for his light-filled compositions. And I'll just quickly read a quote from the artist Vincent Van Gogh about, he observed that L'Ermite is the absolute master of the figure. He does what he lies with it, proceeding neither from color nor the local tone, but rather from light, as Rembrandt did. There is an astonishing mastery in everything he does. Above all, excelling in modeling, perfectly satisfies all that honesty demands.
Nice.
So I thought that was very nice. May we please see the next artwork, Christy? And again, please take a few seconds to look at this artwork top to bottom, side to side, and corner to corner. Okay, so what's going on in this artwork?
Like the last one, there are three figures. The one on the right appears to be a female to me, and the other two appear to be men. And they're wearing hats, though, so they look like they're definitely working in the fields, and appears to be corn that they're working with.
Okay, good.
Mm-hmm.
What do you all think about what lines do you see?
Well, I think sorry. It's a very interesting style, the black and white, and I believe there's some stippling going on there in the middle, but then some very dark and some very light. So I like the way the balance is with the darks and lights. Light obviously coming in from the right-hand side. Very attractive.
Okay, good.
No, sorry, continue. I'm bad. Sharon, continue, please. What you were saying. That I interrupted you.
Oh, no, that's fine. Go ahead.
I was going to say it usually, you know, triangular is the standard diagram and, you know, shape in a painting, and this is actually diamond shaped. Because of the haystack or the stack, maybe it's even stacks of corn. I'm not sure, but there's a very definite diamond pattern.
It's interesting that you asked about lines because I hadn't really seen them, but now I think it's all about lines with the curves in the back and the lines of the husks, maybe is what they are at the bottom. And then the lines of the characters and the corn stack, whatever that's called. So the curves in the back really contrast with the lines in the front. And I think make the lines in the front and in the middle pop out. But then the curves of the figures sort of transition you from the front to the back and the front to the back. I think the lines, the curved lines and the straight lines give a lot of dynamism to this piece.
Okay, good.
I
I agree to the
Joey. Yeah, I called you Joey, Judy. I'm sorry. But you're right. There's a lot of like the curving lines of sort of the hills or the mountains in the background, as well as the figures, and then sort of the corn that they're shucking is really in contrast and does create a lot of movement. And you said dynamism to something that, you know, is the one that we looked at previously was so still and so quiet and so peaceful. And this one just feels more busy, not in a bad way, but it has more, you know, excitement or movement to it than the one that we looked at previously. And it's also cropped a lot differently. We're seeing far less of the landscape. It's not the landscape that's the star. It's kind of like the people and the work and what they're doing, which is the thrust of what we're looking at.
The figure in the front, it looks like he's almost carrying a deer or some animal in back of him. Maybe it's me the way I'm saying, yes, that is. I mean, you can see he's husking the corn in the front, but in the back, that's just, what is it?
Well, what do you see that makes you say that? Can you describe the shape?
That's it. It's almost, it looks as if there's a face and then antlers coming out, but then you can't see the body. I mean, then of course there's the long stick or stalk that seems to be cutting through. And then of course, well, you see the husk that the corn husk in the front, that's very obvious. The light is on the corn husk and on his face, but it's the part in the back, on the left, on the left side, the lower left, that is very vague to me. I just can't figure out what it is. I keep thinking it looks like somebody is carrying a deer after slaying it or shooting it.
Okay, good.
The more I look at this, the more texture I observe.
Yeah.
Look at her skirt.
I'm also drawn to the lighting in the gentleman in the center with his knees, with the curves. Yeah, and it kind of the different shadowing, and also to the left, the white on the gentleman's hat on the left there. So the dark and the light, and it gives it a three-dimension sense. So,
yeah. So very dramatic. I think that the piece really has a lot of drama to it, unlike the last piece, which was so tranquil. This piece just kind of is emboldened somehow.
Also, it's interesting that it's so dramatic and also so quiet in the figures. I mean, I think almost religious with the diamond shape, the triad, and then the diamond shape, the symmetry, and all the heads, the three heads are bowed.
Yeah.
Yeah. And with the light coming from above, I mean, it could indicate a hot summer day, and it could also indicate something sort of, I don't know, sort of a religious overtone, or a peaceful overtone, or that contrast really works. I think it's very compelling.
Okay, good. So I'll just toss this out there. Two-part question. Do you think the figures are members of the same family? And do you think these figures are working their own land, or do you think that they're hired hands?
Hmm.
For some reason, I think it is their own. And there seems to be a silent closeness among them.
There could be a somberness because it isn't their own land.
I think that they are related to your first question, Megan. The guy in the front strikes me as a little bit younger, and I only say that probably because he's not wearing a hat, and he's the only person whose face we can really see. He's not bearded, doesn't look like to me, he doesn't have a mustache. But also I think about, the hills in the background or the mountains are kind of a clue to us, telling us where they are, but you also see this little structure here, and it makes me think, maybe this is a family, working their own piece of land, and they're it. You don't see anyone else in the artwork telling you, that they have people helping them or whatever. So it makes me think of like a small farmstead, somewhere in the mountains.
Also because it's all corn stalks in the background too. I'm receding into the background.
If we had seen this one first, I wonder how differently we might have looked at it originally.
Okay, good.
And can someone comment on what's bothered me about in the lower left? What is that that I can't figure out?
So this here looks like it's a continuation of his overcoat, kind of coming under his arm.
Oh.
And this looks like it's maybe like an apron that he has on that you can kind of see here, covering his shirt and then continuing down. And then this looks like a piece of corn that's just being illuminated. There's this really beautiful light happening behind the figure in the front to sort of help him to stand out. And so it's like the light is also illuminating this corn, maybe an half shucked corn.
Okay, so it's not an animal. I'm totally off with that.
I don't think so, but that's what it looked like to me. And again, I think I can see things, maybe it's slightly clearer on my screen.
Okay, good.
My first thought was it was tenant farmers because of the small house in the background. And it gives me the illusion that there's quite a bit of acreage. They're working at probably those fields of corn were fairly large, particularly if there's 3 people working it. That was just my first impression. I do agree that the first painting was so serene. This one is filled with energy. The use of lighting and lines are really amazing. But that comes out of my background, so that's where I'm coming from.
I think I was looking at the time of day that it might be. It either has to be early morning or dusk, the sun going down, because the sun is obviously not overhead. There's a very big contrast between one side and, the other being very, very dark, the left side being darker. So that's kind of interesting. They're either working very late, so they're tired, or maybe it's morning and they're just getting to it, whichever. And also the first picture, the Gleaners that I was trying to describe was by Millet.
That's what I thought.
Oh,
Mhm.
thank you.
Yeah.
Jean-Francois Millet, yeah. If
Yeah,
anyone-
he did the man with the hoe also.
Uh-huh. Wonderful.
So
Well, I
would,
think
Somehow they look fresh to me. They don't look tired yet.
okay, maybe it's morning. They just had coffee and they're out to the field to get a jump on it.
so would you all like to be in this artwork?
No,
No.
hard work again.
Good.
Is it a woodcut?
It is, and this is a perfect opportunity. Christy, may we see the label, please? This is a wood engraving on paper, and it's aptly titled "Corn Shucking in the Mountains."
Oh, it's very small.
Mm.
Right, goodness.
Yes, and the artist Claire Layton was a British American artist. She was born in 1898 in London and died in 1989 in Connecticut.
Wow.
But her parents were both authors, and so her early efforts at painting were encouraged by her parents. And during the 1920s and 30s, she visited the United States on lecture tours. And then around 1948, she emigrated to the United States and became a naturalized citizen. But
When was that, Megan? I'm sorry, what year?
1940.
So before this was made.
Yes, before this was made, 1945. She had a long and prolific career, and she had varying styles, from the abstract to realism. But she's just had, and she worked on stained glass. She created designs for Wedgwood plates, and she created several stained glass windows for churches in New England. So she had a varied career, but she was very interested in rural scenes, and so they were one of her common subjects. Okay, and may we see the next artwork, please, Christy? Oh, thank you. Okay. So if we could just please take a few seconds to look at this artwork top to bottom, side to side, corner to corner. And I'm very curious to know where each and every one of you, where is your eye drawn first in this artwork?
I was first drawn to the pink and the white in the center, and then to what appears to be cows grazing, even though you only see partial cows. And I'm just looking at the two tones of the trees are two-tone, the cows are two-tone, and then you've got all that pink and white throughout the center.
Okay, good.
And then your eye goes up to the top, to the horizon, and it looks like that's a building.
I was wondering what that was. Is it a chimney or a fence, or it's hard to discern exactly what that is.
Like a log cabin?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
It's a very abstract painting, or it's gearing towards the abstract. I think probably the most realistic, quote unquote around the word realistic, are the cows. But they're not, even the cows are not very, very well defined, and the eye with the patterns on the trees, and like you said, the backgrounds.
See, if I look at the cows, And actually, that's where my eye went when I looked at this piece. I went straight to the cows. Then above the cows, once again, I see the horizon. And so then, and because of the color, because of the palette, I'm not sure what, because then I looked and I thought, well, maybe these are rows of corn and or rows of something and snow. And then when I got to the top, I see something that looks not abstracted. It looks like maybe some kind of building. There are almost three, I'm almost looking at three different pieces.
When I say abstract, maybe it's the wrong word. You're right about, you know, what the shapes are, but we're not sure what exactly it is. They're not, they're very, the lines are definitely there, but because of the fact that we're questioning it, it could be almost anything. I think the cows are probably the most definite thing in the painting.
Sharon, you had your hand up.
It's almost like there's realism here. We know they're cows, and I guess this is supposed to be white birch trees with the dark markings. And I like those. I think that's very nice. I like the cows, but the pink and the white really stops you cold. And I have to wonder what they're trying to portray. Rows in a field or something, but yet it's curved and they're pink, which is a little unusual. Yeah. So it's kind of a perplexing thing. Don't know if abstract and realism were together in a painting. That's almost what it's like.
Yeah.
The background.
I agree.
If the pink and white was just a solid green, we'd say, oh, it's a lawn coming down from that cabin. But the pink and white just really stops me in my tracks. I don't know what to make of it.
So Sandy, then Judy.
So I really appreciated the instruction to start at the top and go down, because immediately I saw pink clouds, and then I went to the top and I went shocked. I was shocked, and I thought, Asian. Those are Asian shades. And those are my pink clouds. And then I went, oh, this is again rolling hills and a valley behind. And then it got so much more interesting to me. I needed the top to make it so interesting. And then when I finally forced myself to go down and see cornfields, oh, it was just great. I would buy this.
Judy and then Anna Neal.
Okay.
I think because of my Midwestern upbringing, I looked at the cows first and then saw the pink and white. And to me, the pink and white immediately was furrowed field covered with some snow, a lot of snow. And then I stopped caring what everything was because of, I think, being primed by the woodcut, by Claire Layton's woodcut that we just looked at. I started noticing the lines and the shapes are fantastic. So the cows have blotches on them, and the blotches are echoed by the trees. And then the furrowed fields are both curvilinear, like the blotches on the trees and the clouds. And also they work up as lines to the structure, whatever it is. And that looks like it's made out of wood. And then the straight lines further back into the background. So I'm just thrilled by the curves and the lines and how they move our eye, how just the curves of the lines and the shapes move our eye around. It's beautiful. It's fabulous.
That's what
I
makes
don't care what anything is.
There's a certain abstraction to it because of all the different shapes and patterns, and going from curved lines and very soft texture to very stark texture, both in the cows and in the structure that we don't know what it is in the background.
It's nice that
I
go ahead, Annalise.
Well, I was just going to say the pink stopped me cold at first. It was like, oh, that doesn't belong. You know, it's definitely a cultivated field, and the cows are enjoying down at the bottom, and the sycamore or birch trees, depending on where it is. But then the more I look at it, I really like the colors, the sort of subdued colors, and yet the real contrast of the building. The lines are wonderful. It's a really pretty picture.
I agree. I'm intrigued
That's all.
too by the trees that go left to right on a slant, like starting from the left. There's one slanted, two slanted, 3, 4, 5. There's a number of them leaning from left to right, which I think just kind of makes a framing of the picture. I like it.
But to my eye, this work, like the last piece, shows as are examples of how diagonal lines create energy.
Mm-hmm.
And so I see a lot of energy. The other thing I was going to say is I could take the cows and the trees, which could be quaking aspen, by the way.
Yeah. That's true.
And I could take those and pull those out and put them someplace entirely different and make a whole different painting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
I'm just
good.
intrigued by all the combinations and the colors and the lines, and even the gray tones up in the back. It looks like it's almost another forest there, in back of some definitely furrowed fields. The pink and white stripes way in the top right-hand corner.
It's interesting to me how the structure, how important that is to this work. I think
Yeah.
if I imagine it being taken out, it just the work it loses
good.
It's
so much.
yeah.
But what is it?
Well, it doesn't matter. It's just I mean, to me it doesn't matter. To you it might matter.
It's an interesting contrast. This is so full of contrast.
Yeah.
So if we remove the structure, then what do you see? How would it change your perception of what you're looking at?
Makes it blander, makes it more homogeneous, I guess. That structure is a disruption in its straight vertical line, which are contrasting to the tilted trees and the lines of the furrows. And the color is not, it's not a heavy contrast, but it stops us. And then I think it throws our eyes sort of back to the cows and back around. Again, creates sort of a movement, a dynamism, kind of an up and down and left and right swirl. That if it weren't there, I don't think there'd be as much movement, and definitely not as much interest, visual interest.
I agree. I think it creates depth also.
Yeah. I think there's very strong depth of fields here. And I do think that the building being up, or the structure being up at the top, it does draw your eye up to it.
Well, I think that this really makes us think, obviously. And there's so many different things going on. You have the very slim trees that are kind of swaying or have been swaying in the breeze, the stiff looking building, if that is a log building. Then the blotchy cows, by the way, are Holsteins.
Dairy cattle, yeah.
Calling them just flat, like they have, there's no disease there. But anyway, it's just so different because you have an animal which is furry and alive. Then you have the trees going in different directions, which I love the trees. Then you have the pink abstract, which we're all seeing, I guess, as furrows in a field, although that's not what it is realistically. Then the building is with the straight logs and the little touch of the gray for a background up there. It just keeps you going, doesn't it? You can't stop thinking about why would they do this? Why would they do that? It's realistic. It's not realistic. just an interesting thing.
Okay, good. So what about the color choice the artist made? If we substituted yellow for the pink, how would that change? Time of day or season or temperature or even the scene? Would you look at this differently?
So I have seen furrows like that in the Midwest, when there's a red sunset and there's snow, and they are bright pink. I've seen that color. If they were yellow, I would say they're growing mustard or something. It would definitely change the time of day and the whole feeling of this that this has.
Okay, good.
So in the chat box, Micah, you said that without the barn, this artwork would be a completely different experience for you. Do you want to talk a little bit more about that?
I knew you were going to ask that.
Well, you open the door, Micah.
Oh gosh, English is optional. I just put my hand up and blocked out that upper right part of the piece, and it's a sensation of more movement for me. And then when I take my hand away, the barn just seems to anchor the piece. I don't know if anybody's said that before. I had to step away for a few minutes, but yeah, just that. It's interesting to do that, to just take your hand and block it out and then bring it back.
I've been looking at it the same way, Micah, that, if that top bit just weren't there, then the whole could be very cohesive to me. But then if you kind of cover up the bottom, the cows, then the whole could be cohesive to me as well. It's sort of the combination of the three different registers that are fairly clearly delineated in and of themselves. It's the combination and then the placement of them then that makes it interesting and mysterious and keeps you wondering. If you took away any single one of them, it would make the picture make sense in a different way.
I love the contrast and the almost disorientation of it. I think it adds to the painting, and if you took it out, unless you inserted something else with the of the same coloration or contrast, I think would be very almost bland.
Would you want it hanging over your dining table or in your dining room?
Yes.
Yes, or in my living room.
Yes.
Hey, good. Well,
how big is it, Megan?
It is 31 by 35 inches approximately.
Yeah, I thought it was big.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On my screen, it looks like multiple shades of the pink, that there's darker pink, more intense, then lighter pink, and a little lighter pink before you get to the white, which again kind of balances out to me with the way the cows are two-toned, the trees are two-toned, and at the top you've got the brown with the cabin, but then you've also got gray to the left and the right of that. So I just think it really is like put together, if you will.
See, I think it would be a great piece in a dining room where you would have discussions and you would never have the same discussion twice.
No. Well, I'm sensing.
Oh, that's a good one.
That I was thinking this might be a good stopping point so that
before you do, Megan, Sandy has had her hand up for a while. So one last comment to you, Sandy.
Unmute. Sandy, unmute.
What I really needed to love this painting was the top, but now you're getting me to think it's the solid blue gray that I need with the pink to want to buy this painting.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to just, if we could see the label, please, Christy. I'll tell you just a little about the artist, but I think you all have already answered my final question, but I wanted to leave a little bit of time. Which one of these artworks is your favorite? I think I know the answer, but I'll let y'all think on it for another minute. Maude Florence Gatewood, she was born in Yanceyville, North Carolina in 1934, and she lived until 2004, but she's one of North Carolina's most acclaimed painters. She earned a prestigious Fulbright grant to study painting, but returned to the United States and mostly taught at University of North Carolina in Charlotte. But she's just a very acclaimed painter. But growing up in Yanceyville, her parents encouraged her independence and free spirit, which I love because she was born in 1934. Just thinking about a young woman, especially during such a difficult times, but that her parents encouraged her. And she used to explore her town, Yanceyville, on horseback. And so she really revered nature. And she definitely, she was reluctant to define her aesthetic philosophy, insisting that her paintings were her statement. So I love that about her. But then we'll just sort of circle back. Which one was your favorite out of all three? I'll ask it in two parts. Which scene would you most like to be in? If you could just sort of be plopped down in the center of the scene, and also which one is your favorite that you would like to have the artwork hanging in your home? So,
Well, I'll go first. This one is my favorite, but I think it would be fun to be in the previous, the number 2 work had so much going on in it. I think it would be interesting to be there in the cornfield.
yes, okay, good.
My favorite is the current one from the low grounds with the cows and the pinks. And I would like to be just out there sitting, watching the cows graze. I'm a city person originally, so just watching cows graze could be peaceful to me.
My favorite is this more for the almost the abstraction of it and the conversation that is going on about it. And this is the one I would like hanging. It's just my sort of my style. But the first one, I would love to be part of that, to hear the conversation going on among the 3 people with the baby and who they are and what the relationship is among them.
Okay, good.
Mm-hmm. I love this one. I've loved looking at all of them. And it's very interesting to me that the title is From the Lowlands. And I've been sort of listening carefully to the observations because I have a visual distortion and of both color and depth. And so I was really intrigued to hear what people saw. And so if I had entered this one first myself, I would have seen black crows. I wouldn't have seen cows. And so it was still, so I was loved that y'all could point that out. But I could see, and I think I was influenced by the previous one. It seems to me that there's the lowlands is the field that has already been, the corn has been removed and the animals are there to take what's left over. And I actually too was on a farm and on a cattle farm, but we had Black Angus, so I would have seen that differently. But I love the curvature of the lines that are just sort of for me, the whole painting has a mystical element, and the straight lines at the top provide a different kind of depth. I loved someone's comment that you could hang it on your wall and every conversation would be different, because I totally agree with that.
Sandy?
The cows for me just make me laugh. Like that's the joke of the artist. I can make beautiful paintings and I'll even throw cows in it.
Ellen, you're muted.
The building, to make me wonder why that was thrown in, because it is such a major contrast from everything else. And what is that shape? And especially the way it is so organized. The lines are very, very straight, where everything else has a certain curve and a softness to it. And that building or structure is very structured.
It's very regular.
Regular, yeah. And very, parallel. The lines are so parallel there.
There's sort of the one geometric shape and then all the other organic shapes.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you.
I love the juxtaposition of these last two artworks, because the building, although it was a different perspective, but the building on the hill, the curvature of the lines between the sheaves of corn, there's something, putting the two together influenced how I saw this one, influenced my first vision of this one, so that we were looking up close and at a distance in the previous painting, and here, without that building, which isn't a barn because the barn sidings are so much wider, but it instead of the building being distant, and it just really is a real play in perspective between the two. I loved the last two put together that way. I think that was, if that was an intentional choice, I thought it was very clever.
Just to comment on your choice too in ordering, Megan, I really enjoyed the way that we went from something that was very realistic and had sort of traditional depth of field and placement of characters, and you sort of took us to something then that was a little bit more playing with our depth and our perspective, and then something at the end that was completely, throwing that into question. It was a very nice progression into the topic.
Oh, thank you. And I just enjoyed everyone's comments today. You just sparked such an engaging conversation. So thank you all.
Any last questions for Megan before we sign off today? All right. Well, thank you, Megan, for choosing these artworks, and thank you to all of you for coming in and participating. I always learn something new. These two artworks from our collection were ones that honestly I hadn't sat down and spent a lot of time with, so now I feel like I know everything about them. Thank you for the conversation today. And for next week, our topic is Weaving Women, Creating with Fiber. And our touring docent, Barbara Heller, in celebration of Women's History Month, has chosen 4 artworks that all use fiber and or weaving. So they're 3-dimensional artworks from our, and all 4 of them are from our collection, so that we can explore this, I guess what you would traditionally call women's art forms, but also really look at why would we call them that, and what makes them unique, and what can we experience from them. So thank you all for coming. We look forward to seeing you next week. If you'd like to register, get registered on our website. I can say I already have more than usual registrations for that one. So if you want to guarantee your spot, hop on today or tomorrow and sign yourself up. Have a great weekend, everybody. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.